Today I'm going to go through how I edit and scan color negative film on an Epson V600 and Adobe Lightroom. The first thing I'll do is just load the film into the scanner and dust off everything with one of those air blowers. The photos I'm scanning are just two portraits I took the other week on my RZ67, which I recently bought. When you open up Epson Scan, make sure it's set to professional mode. Then for document type you choose film and color negative film. I'm going to choose 48-bit color, and for resolution I'll go with 2400 dpi. You can then hit the preview button and view it in the normal mode. Then I'm just going to make a selection within the first frame and hit the auto expose button. Then you can go to the histogram and drag out the highlight and the shadow points on the curve. Then I'll just set the output levels to their maximum, and in terms of exposure you can raise the midpoint a little bit if it's looking kind of dark. With color correction I'll add a little bit of blue to the highlights because the image is looking a little bit warm, and I'll add some magenta to the highlights as well because the image was looking green. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and close the histogram and extend the selection of the frame to cover the whole picture. And then I'll just go ahead and do the same with the next frame. Just make a selection, auto expose it, drag out the highlights and the shadows, then make sure the output levels are set to the maximum, and we can raise the exposure a little bit. This picture doesn't actually look too warm, it just looks quite green, so I'm not really going to change the blues. I'm just going to come across to the greens and add quite a bit of magenta to the highlights. And that looks pretty good, so I extend the selection. And then in terms of the settings under the adjustments, I'm going to turn off unsharp mask and turn on the digital ice. Then you hit the select all button and press scan. I have the first image open in Lightroom, and I'm going to start by just fixing the crop a little bit. I'll crop out the film borders of the image and change the composition a little bit because there was too much negative space on the right. I'll adjust the temperature and tint of the image just like a little bit, but I'm going to make those changes further in the hue section later on. The scan itself came out quite contrasty, so I'm going to drop the contrast to -30 to fix that, and then I'll go ahead and just raise the shadows a little bit as well and do the same with the blacks, and that looks good. It also came out quite oversaturated, so I'm just going to drop that by -6. In terms of the tone curve, I'll just add a very simple S-curve to add a little bit of contrast back into the image, which I think looks good. Then when I come down to the hues, I'm gonna move the oranges quite far to red because the skin tones look a little bit off, and then to further fix them I'm gonna move the yellows quite far towards orange. Then there's some green color cast in his face from the scan, so what I'll do is just bring the greens all the way over to yellow, and that kind of fixes that cast. The aquas can go towards blue, and the blues can go towards aqua, about the same distance. The purple and magenta slider don't seem to do much, so I'm going to leave them alone. I'll add a little bit of teal to the image to kind of balance it because it's quite orange, and you can turn up the saturation all the way to see what kind of color you're adding. I like where this is at, so then I'll just drop the saturation down again, and I think about 20 will look good for this image. And that's the final image. I think that's pretty clean. With the second image I'll just copy over the settings, and then I'll go to the crop section and adjust the crop a little bit. First I'll do the film borders, and then I'm going to rotate this image a little bit because it looks a little bit off. And that's all this needs really. I'm really happy with the way the final two images came out. I think they're pretty true to the original photos. They just kind of fixed some of the weird color casts. Like the originals were quite over warm and they looked green, which wasn't very nice for the skin tones. So I just fixed that and I'm happy with the way these look. I hope that was helpful. I always find it interesting to see how other people do this kind of thing, so I hope this is interesting. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, you can check out my Instagram here. It's @WillemVerb. I post photos from these videos as well as just my own work, so check that out. I'm also uploading once a week, so make sure you subscribe.